Welcome, everybody, to Edge of the Rabbit Hole here on Connecting the Universe. I'm author and researcher Mike Ricksecker. With me, as always, Victoria Monday, and down in the chat room, Alina moderating the chat. We have a fantastic episode coming up for you tonight. Our very good friend Rob Gutro is back with us. He has a new book out just in time for St. Patrick's Day, too. Ghosts of Ireland on a Medium's Vacation. So Rob has been with us many times to talk of an assortment of different things between ghosts, hauntings, of course, pet communication with pet spirits, a lot of different topics that we have hit on over the years. And this one is definitely going to be a favorite. Since I've been to Ireland before, absolutely loved it. Rob has been to places I haven't been to before. So this is going to be absolutely wonderful. No, without further ado, Rob, welcome back.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Victoria. Good to see you.
Gosh, it's been a while.
It has been a little while. Yeah. Well, we went away there for a little while, so we didn't have guests for a long time.
You did. I think the last time I was on, we talked about the three ghosts of Christmas past.
Oh, we may have. Yeah, that would have been one of our last shows before we took a break. Yeah.
Yeah, you picked the best of our guests. Well, I mean, they're all great, but you pick our personal favorites. I think.
Right, exactly.
I paid her to tell you that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Rob and I go back quite a ways here.
Decades.
Yeah. Well, a little over a decade. I don't know about decades, but
almost decades.
Yeah. Well, back in the IGT days, as far as ghost tracking. So, it's been a hot minute for sure. So Rob, let's go ahead and let's dive into it. Let's talk about the new book. Oh, well, we do have to say, give some nice shout outs here. Tom McNicholas is in the house. There's Jen. We've got Scarlett is with us tonight. Vicky Breeze, which Vicky was on the tour with us in Ireland a couple of years ago too. So yeah, we're going to be recapping some of these different things, but Rob's going to give us his insights. And with his new book right here, Ghosts of Ireland on a Medium's Vacation. And the shot here is from the old Cork City Gaol, which is a very, very cool building. So Rob, tell us about this. Tell us about the new book.
So the Ghosts of Ireland on a Medium's Vacation is my third in the series. It follows the Ghost of the Birdcage Theater that Victoria liked because she had her experiences, and the Ghosts of England. So we went on vacation back in, I think it was 2015 when we were in Ireland. So it's taken a while to put this together, but if you like hauntings and you like history, and if you plan to take a tour of Ireland, I've written this book even more geared to people who want to travel, because what I've done is I've broken everything down by county, and then within each chapter, there are the different places that we visited that had hauntings in it. I've also noted historically significant things, even though they may not have been haunted. There may have been some residual energy. And in addition, I have a special page at the end of the book that has links to videos that I made when I was there. So you can see 2-minute videos of me describing the ghosts that I encountered.
Oh, very cool. So these are out there on YouTube somewhere?
Yeah, they're on my YouTube channel. They're also in the book. They're also in each chapter. Plus, there's a special page.
Okay.
I was going to say that's one of my favorite parts of the book is you put all that in the back. So I'm like, it's one thing to read it, but when you can actually go and see it, that's just like an extra validation. Brings it home.
Yeah, and somewhere I was really driven to do kind of an on-the-spot reporting thing, Mike, because I went to this one cathedral where there was a ghost who was hung upside down, and then he was cut up, and he was still wandering around in there. He's still haunting the place. So
yeah, I'd probably be haunting it too if that happened to me. Ouch. Not a good way to go.
No. But you mentioned St. Patrick's Day, and there
Yeah.
actually is a chapter where I reference St. Patrick.
Oh, do tell.
So in County Louth, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but there's a famous ancient cemetery with 3 high crosses that have come to symbolize Ireland, and it's called Monaster Boyce. It's one of the oldest religious sites in Ireland, and in there are ruins of a church, and one thing that still stands there is a round tower, which is something that used to be built to house records. And also when they built these round towers, these large round towers, so that when there were Viking attacks, and there were Viking attacks.
Oh, there were, yeah.
Yeah, they would stuff all of the records in there, and the door was about 10 to 15 feet from the ground, and they would get in there by a ladder. So when the Vikings would attack, they'd all go in there and they'd pull the ladder up to try and save themselves. So that was kind of cool. But in this particular place, Monaster Boyce, there was a monastery there, and there was a monk who was a follower of St. Patrick. And this monk is supposed to have it's Saint Boit is the name, and it's named after him. He was supposed to have raised the King of Scotland from the dead.
Oh, wow.
Which is
Okay.
weird. But so this area is associated with St. Patrick. St. Patrick was actually there at one point in time, trying to spread Christianity.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say was, because I absolutely love the countryside, so many fantastic castles, ruins. We went to some stone circles while we were there. I see that Cody Lyman is down there in the house as well. Great to see you, Cody. Another one with us on that particular tour. What would you say was like your favorite haunt while you were there?
Well, I would have to say the Cork City Jail.
Okay, so Cork, and that's the one that made the cover. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you know who the guy was? I'm sorry. Did you know who the guy was and that you photographed?
No, I think that he was a prisoner. There were so many. There were 8 different ghosts that I encountered in the Cork City Jail. So, as I like to preface my books in these series, when you're a medium and you go on vacation, you're really not thinking about blocking or protecting yourself. You're there to enjoy seeing stuff. Mm-hmm. And so my guard is all down, and and we went to the Cork City Jail. It was actually not on our list. We happened to kind of stumble across it when we went into Cork. So we figured, okay, it's now a museum. Let's go look at it. But man, there were 8 different dead people walking around, and they were all men. They were all prisoners. So,
well, what I found interesting about the Cork City Jail, the way that they have it set up, because they have all those mannequins there, looking like the people that had spent time there. Mm-hmm. And there'd be time, you walk by one of the cells that has one of these mannequins, that very, very lifelike, and some of them would creep you out, just the way that they would stare at you, like, is the doll really staring at me? It's very, very lifelike. It's kind of unnerving, but it adds to that spooky vibe.
Yeah, it really does. So one of the interesting prisoners that was there is a guy named Thomas Rail, and he was actually a young boy at the time when he was imprisoned in there, and there wasn't an intelligent haunt there, but there was a lot of energy when I first walked in, and he was I think he was convicted of stealing books, and so as a boy they placed him in solitary confinement, which is, you know, pretty harsh. But then when he was in there, he turned to religion. And and when I walked in there, I felt a lot of bad residual emotional energy in there. And I just thought that was really weird coming from somebody who turned to religion, you know. But as I found out when I came home and I started researching him, he had become angry and bitter. And when I was in there, I remember saying, this kid turned out to be not a nice person. And when I got home from vacation, I started researching him, and I found out that he started getting involved in more serious crime, and he was back in there. And when he went back in there, he left strong negative energy in there.
Yeah, and you're talking about, you look at the building. I mean, it's very old. It's very historic. Living conditions inside there at the time that it was in use, it definitely would not have been good. Small, cramped cells, would have gotten, of course, very cold during the winter. And we were mentioning before that it does not get very hot in Ireland during the summer, so it's always really kind of cool, damp, that sort of thing, which is one of the reasons why it stays so green. So yeah, I can imagine that being incarcerated like that didn't help his issues too much.
Yeah, especially going back. So when you went there, do you remember being in the drum gallery?
Yeah,
it was the West Wing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was as soon as I went in that drum gallery area, I immediately encountered a ghost who shared his pain of death. And when I go to these places, sometimes they will do that. They will make me feel like different things, like either heart attacks or cancer, or I don't know, appendix, or anything that killed them. But in this particular case, suddenly I felt the pain just rip through my left shoulder, and I felt like I was being hit from behind. And I heard the male ghost start to convey his story. He told me that he was a prisoner and he was hit multiple times, beaten by a guard, and apparently the beating split the back of his head, because I felt like there was blood coming out of the back of my head, and I felt dizzy, and my head felt warm, and it was a pretty traumatic experience getting up to the top of that stair, and suddenly I'm like, what in the world is happening here? So in the book, I actually drew a sketch of what I saw happening to the ghost.
Okay.
Yeah, and he told me his name. Actually, he said his name was Daniel, and the reason he was in there was because he stole horses and sheep. So I even put a link to a little video I made when I was in there. But he died in the jail. He died from that beating. Once he was beaten, they dragged him into his cell, and that's where he died.
Yeah, and horse thievery back in the day was pretty hardcore. I mean, that's kind of like our Grand Theft Auto of today.
True. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that. That's something I wanted to talk about. But are you like psychic or something? Did you know I was going to ask you about that? About Daniel? Because you had the same thing happen to you, didn't you, when you went to Tombstone, being grabbed? I thought you said your throat or something when you went down the stairs in the back.
Yeah, in Tombstone. Well, that was kind of different because I was shot in the throat in Tombstone.
But does that happen a lot when you go to these places? People show you their deaths?
Yeah, sadly, yes. And that's just the way that, that's the way they try to convey their identity. And still, even though he made me feel hit in the head by the object, and I could feel the blood coming out of the back of my head, and he told me his name was Daniel, I still don't know who he is, really, because you can't find records online that go back that far.
Well, you're just going to have to go back.
There you go.
I figure I'll figure out who he is, after I pass over. Then it'd be like,
sometime soon.
you were the guy that hit me in the back of the head.
Yeah, because I've had an experience like that before, and it's very unnerving to, like, what is going on with my head? And then they're like, oh, the person that I encountered, they were shot in the back of the head. I'm like, so I can imagine, if you go to all these places and this happens to you time and time again.
Yeah, you'd think I'd be smarter by now, like to protect myself, especially when I go into a jail or
You're
prison.
on vacation.
I'm on vacation, and
That's right.
And the thing is, Victoria,
even though you're on vacation, you can't really turn off that ability, though.
No, I can't turn it off, but I think I can protect myself, like surround myself by white light. But Mike, honestly, when I got to the front of this place and as you showed on the screen there, I was like, wow, this is wild. This is crazy. And I wasn't thinking about, what what dead people were inside.
Right.
I actually encountered some outside too.
Do you ever encounter?
Oh, well, the gallows were right outside the front door there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're on these vacations, English is my first language. When you're on vacation, do you ever encounter pets or other animals that have passed over, or is it just the ghost and stuff?
And I think only in England did I encounter a dog in a house museum. But no, in Tombstone, I did see some residual horses.
Yes.
Going down the street. So they were just residual. Yeah, it was just residual energy of horses. But no, for the most part, it's mostly people and people with issues.
Like being murdered and
there's that might be an issue. Yeah.
Not crossing over. Well, I have an idea for your next book, your next medium on a vacation. You should come to Fort Worth.
Okay.
Yeah, come to Fort Worth. It's ghost everywhere. It's got the brothels and the saloons and the Wild West and the Chisholm Trail and all that. And
I thought she liked me.
Yeah, I know, right?
I love your mom.
Hey, here, let's bombard you with a bunch of spiritual energy.
Yeah, Rob, why don't you feel shot over and over again when I come to Fort Worth?
I'm trampled by these cows. And they still do the stampedes maybe they're not stampedes. The cattle walking through the streets, they still do that like every Saturday or something.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah. So
wow.
How does traffic hold up for that?
You just got to watch where you park. Don't park on the street, park around the corner. Yeah. Big cows, long horns,
So we have a question here from Sarah Youssef, and she's wondering, how do you separate the sensory experience of experiencing someone's death versus your actual feelings?
It's actually because I actually feel the physical pain, not to the extent of the person that endured it. But it's always a sudden onset. So, if I wouldn't feel just walking up the stairs, I normally wouldn't feel like some giant wooden bat hit me in the back of the head because there's nothing there. So yeah,
I'd hope not. We don't want you, suffer some blunt force trauma. I mean,
well, you've known me a long time. Sometimes it feels like I suffered from that. But one thing that I wanted to mention is that the cover of the book that you showed earlier.
Yeah,
that was a photograph that I took in the jail. And for me, it's really rare to catch a ghost on camera. It only happened, I think, once before, and that was in Tombstone. That was in my book, The Ghost of the Birdcage Theater, where I caught the face of one of the actors who haunts it that appeared in a portrait. But this was interesting. It was the second floor of the Northern Corridor. And so the Northern Corridor, I don't know, when you were there, Mike, did they have some of the corridors like sealed off by glass?
Yeah. And that was one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was it was sealed off by glass when I was there, and there were of course jail cells on each side, and I happened to feel a presence as I was walking by a corridor. So I stopped in front of the glass, and I kept feeling like there was a male ghost, someone near me. So I put the camera. Actually, this one had bars instead of glass. Now that I think of it.
Okay.
So this one had bars, and I put the camera between the bars, and I took 3 pictures in a row. And in the book, you can see the 3 sequential pictures, and only in the 3rd picture can you see the apparition that is crossing the hallway.
Okay. Wow.
So that's what I decided to make my cover, because it's very rare for me. Normally I use my head, not my camera, but it's very rare for me to catch something like that. And he appeared green, which was weird.
Okay, that's a little different.
Yeah.
And hence the front of your book cover.
Yes.
Green. Gotcha.
Yeah, but for anyone who picks up the book, you can see the 3 pictures that I took in sequence.
Cool. So
Yeah.
definitely everybody get the book. I do have the link down in the description, so you can click on that and go in and grab a copy. So, or people could probably go to your website and pick it up too.
No, they can go to Amazon.
Go to Amazon. Go to Amazon.
Yeah.
Which is the link I have in the description. So there we go.
And I had big news too this week, is that now it's available as an audiobook.
Oh, really? Did you read it or did somebody else read it?
No, I had AI read it.
You had AI read it. Okay.
Yeah, because I clear my throat too much, and and I'm conscious of that. And my other half says, you clear your throat too much, it's really annoying. So don't read your book.
Ouch.
Well, when you have asthma, you have to clear your throat.
Yeah.
So, and when you're married for 18 years, you can.
Yeah, Tom's just being honest. Yeah.
Right. I was like, okay, I know I'm annoying.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't know AI could do that.
Oh, you can get AI to do almost anything these days.
Well, yeah, I figured I'd take advantage of it. But so the for anyone who really is interested in the paranormal and going to Ireland, I really recommend the Cork City Gaol, because I did have 8 encounters there, and one of the encounters, Mike, was even in an outbuilding, which is kind of crazy.
Okay. Yeah, I know we walked the grounds there. I don't know if we were able to get into anything. We were kind of limited on time. So which outbuilding was this?
I think there was one that was a hospital.
Okay.
And it's in
one of those buildings in the back there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's in ruins. And when when we happened to walk by, I mean, I didn't expect anything in there, but when we walked by that hospital building, Tom suddenly reported that he said he smelled something sickly sweet. And and sometimes ghosts use sense to identify themselves, but I don't. I couldn't figure out what a sickly sweet smell was, and I couldn't smell it. But inside the building, I heard a man's voice say his name was McGee.
Oh,
and,
cool.
Yeah, and I went back and I looked in there. I looked down there, and I did not see anybody, but he said that he had died in the building, and it seemed to me that he was a former either inmate or employee that died in the building.
Okay. Yeah, that's unfortunate. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I would also caution people that if you go into a place where there are ruins like this, like the ruins of this hospital, we didn't go in there because it could be dangerous. You could trip and fall and whatever. Sure. And then you're in the back of a prison and nobody's going to find you. Yeah. And then you'll haunt it later.
Yeah, you don't want to become one of the haunts.
No.
So question here from Scarlett. Are ghosts more invisible? I know some show their appearance, but it seems most don't want to be seen.
Yeah, that's a good question with a number of different answers. So as a scientist, I talk about how energy is the baseline for the paranormal, and that ghosts, earthbound ghosts, or spirits who cross over are energy. And as such, they need energy to get strong enough to appear. So if there's enough energy, they can become visible, whether they appear as an outline or kind of a shadow or in full color. It all depends on the energy source, and energy sources can be physical, like heat, light, water, electricity, or they can be emotional. So so emotional energy that empowers an earthbound ghost would be the negative emotions like anxiety and fear and anger and depression and so forth. So granted, I was a little anxious when I went and looked in the ruins, and I suddenly heard McGee.
Yeah.
And I thought, what in the world? Is there somebody hiding back there? And no, it was a dead man. But I didn't see him. So he didn't have enough energy to be visible.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
what would you say is the difference between being a ghost and being a spirit, or is there one?
Yeah, it's about location, really. So that was the foundation of my first book, Ghosts and Spirits Explained, and then that I tried to explain what happens by talking to people who died on the other side. And when we die, we have a choice. We can choose to stay earthbound, and that's what I call a ghost, in a fixed location of our choosing, or where we died, or someplace we lived or worked or whatever. Or we can cross over into the light, and that's what I call a spirit. And spirits have the ability to communicate with us any place, anytime around the world. And the spirits of one of my dogs actually did communicate with us in Ireland. You bet.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, it was funny. It was not a human. It was one of my dogs.
Go figure that.
But ghosts only are able to communicate in the place they choose. So this guy McGee, the guy Daniel, who was inside, they're stuck right where they chose to live as a ghost in their afterlife.
So why do you think they want to stay there? I mean, especially if you got hit in the head and then drugged back in the cell and died. I mean, I'd want to go to Hawaii or something after that.
True, although he probably didn't even know what Hawaii was back in the 1800s. But no, seriously, that's a really good question. So I found that, especially when it comes to people who die in prisons or hospitals, they usually awaken as that energy entity with their consciousness, and they're confused. And some are confused and they linger too long, however long that is, and then they get trapped. And I have an explanation, by the way, about why they get trapped. I finally figured it out. The other thing too is that also when prisoners pass away, they have that life review, and they realize that they did things wrong and they were bad people. And people who are believe in a religion would say, "Oh, I'm not crossing over because it's going to send me to a really bad place," although it won't. So that's why they stay behind. So
okay, that makes sense.
So let's we've been talking about the Cork jail there for a while, which is a fascinating place. We really enjoyed it. But you've also visited a number of other places as well. Trinity College. You talk about Blarney Castle in your book, Rock of Cashel. What were some of these other places to you? How what did you discover in your travels?
I discovered that a lot of these places that were in ruins have a lot of residual energy. There aren't really interactive ghosts. Any interactive ghost, once a place goes into ruins, will seek shelter, just like a living person would. They may leave an impression of their energy on there, but they would go to the next nearest place.
Okay.
So that was pretty fascinating.
Interesting. So were you stepping into locations that actually had some of these other spirits that weren't the residual energy? Like, I don't know, were they hanging out at some of the local bars and taverns, or where were you finding them at?
Spirits. Your spirits,
The,
Mike.
the spirits were at the spirits. We're getting spirits. Yeah.
So, for instance, in Dublin, there was a ghost in a library, in Marsh's library,
Okay.
and I didn't even have to go into Marsh's library to communicate with this ghost. But what and there are other places, churches, Lynch Castle. Gosh, a lot of churches had issues. There are also very old shops on the Dingle Peninsula in County Kerry, and it was in two shops that I met two ghosts. Places that you wouldn't even expect to find them. One was in I think it was in a place that made sweaters and scarves and so forth, and the other was an art studio.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
But they probably weren't that all the time.
No, they were residences before. So
Okay.
yeah, and that's why those people were haunting them there. So it was anywhere. There was just so many different places that I ran into them.
Do you think they're always hanging out, or do they hang out and they go, oh, hey, this guy can hear us, we're going to go talk to him? Or maybe they're always going up to people and people just don't hear them?
I think that may be. So the way that I look at an earthbound ghost is that they're just a little ball of energy that doesn't have much energy. If you turn like a nightlight on, for instance, just a very dim nightlight, that's pretty much what a ghost is in my mind. It just waits. And it's like one of those motion sensor lights that as soon as energy comes by it lights up.
Okay.
So, because it feeds off our emotional energy. And if they're lucky enough that somebody is a medium or sensitive, that they can pick up on it. If not, they're just talking to the wind, really. What was that question that I was going to address earlier, Victoria? We were talking about something.
That was 2 minutes ago. I don't know. I asked you about animals.
Oh, I think it was crossing over.
Oh,
Yeah, that got
So-
asked. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of an important thing because, Mike, as you know, I always try to apply science to everything.
Right.
And what I've figured out by talking to people in spirit is that when our physical body dies and we become that energy entity, we are really supercharged. All of our energy is there. And we have enough energy within the first couple of days to open a doorway to the other side. But over time, that energy wanes. If you think of like a light that you put in your yard that's powered by the sun, I can't remember what to call it.
The little solar
The
panel
solar-
lights.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. If you think of the solar lights, that only has so much power, and then it starts fading. But so what I've learned is that it requires a tremendous amount of energy for an entity to cross over to the other side, and that's why when we've gone on paranormal investigations, it requires like 4 or 5 people to pool their emotional energies together to create enough energy to open that doorway. So
Okay.
that's how I can explain the power to cross over and why ghosts get stuck. That makes sense?
It does. I'm just thinking about it now.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, Rob.
Yeah.
Ireland is a land that's very full of different superstitions. You have
Mhm.
leprechaun tales, you have fairies, you have the banshee. How do some of those tales play into the hauntings or some of the legends of these different hauntings, wherever it might be? Because some of these castles have some of these different legends associated with it, or might have a fairy ring over there, or might be a location near the bluffs, and you hear the banshee wail. So how do these legends kind of play into these hauntings that are there?
Yeah, they they certainly add to the mystery of it. I know that Blarney Castle has a garden, and what's called the Witch's Stone in that
There it is.
Oh, how
area.
pretty.
Look at you.
I'm prepared. I'm prepared.
He is totally the host with the most. But I didn't encounter anything when I went in the witch's garden.
Hmm.
They are beautiful, and there's natural rock formations, and they name them such crazy things like Witch's Cave, Druid Circles, Wishing Steps. One thing that also added to the mystery of it, Mike, was particularly around Blarney Castle, was a poison garden.
Oh yeah, seriously, yeah. The plants are poisonous plants. Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember that there was ricin and opium and cannabis, and not that cannabis is poisonous, but
Yeah, no, the grounds of Blarney, and we didn't have enough time to really explore as much as we wanted to. So when we go back, we're going to spend a full day there. But there's so much there, like you're saying. There's a dolmen there, all kinds of gardens to walk through with lush vegetation. It's amazing what's there. It's not just the castle and the stone to kiss.
Yeah, so I learned that the garden area is about 60 acres.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So,
Massive. Yeah.
So
yeah,
okay,
it's
I'm sorry. This poison garden, is this something that dates back? Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah.
Did you take that picture, Mike?
I did, yes.
Okay, see, I knew I've seen that before. Yeah. That's pretty. Okay, so the poison garden, does that date back to the time of the castle, or is it just like something they threw in there for tourists? Do you know?
I don't know the answer to that, but I would think it goes back a couple of 100 years.
Do
you know, Mike?
It's ingenious.
Yeah, like the witch's stones there. There's a legend associated with those stones with the castle. So they are apparently they're supposed to predate the castle, but I'm trying to remember what the legend was. It's something when like the master of the castle, when his sons died or whatever, he went out there and he did something to the stones, and so there's like some curse associated with it. I can't recall the tale off the top of my head though. So
that's pretty cool because you just can't run to CVS when you're in the 1600s or whatever to get your medicinal herbs to poison your whoever's attacking. I mean,
right?
That's pretty cool.
True. One of the things that I did mention in my book about the witch's stone is that the legend says that a witch was trapped in one of the stones. That was one of the legends. I know that a number of paranormal groups have gone out there to explore the rocks and the gardens, but honestly, I didn't get any energy there. And I think that, again, because it's outside, it's exposed to the elements, and weather is energy. And one of the things I explain in this book is how places in ruins that are exposed to weather energy, they just dissipate. And if you think of weather and maybe strong winds eroding things, making erosion on the land, it kind of does that with energy too, especially when it's in ruins. So that's why you can go into ruins and you can feel residual energy on the walls, from the walls. But the intelligent haunts seem to go to other places, other structures nearby.
And for our viewers and listeners who don't know, Rob is a meteorologist, so he knows what he's talking about when it comes to weather.
Well, thank you. I like to think I do.
Well, okay. Along that line of thought, so let's say you're in a ruins, a strong low pressure cell is coming in from the west. Okay, wouldn't that also charge up the activity and the energy also? Like a strong storm?
Yeah. So weather does that. So what it would do is if there was residual energy that are impressed within the walls of something, you would likely feel it more, especially if you're sensitive. You may also see residual images. Like if you're in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, you may see, and it's storming out, you may see residual images of the soldiers. So yeah, weather is a tremendous energy source. And I like to point out that a bolt of lightning is 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than the surface of the sun.
Oh, wow.
Of course, the sun gets hotter as it goes out, but that's a tremendous amount of energy that earthbound ghosts can use, or spirits who have crossed over, or it can power up residual energy. And it's like almost always misting or raining. I don't know if you experienced that when you were there in the summer.
No, it was definitely wet. I always carried like 3 different jackets with me because the temperatures were changing or start raining or something crazy. So the weather there in Ireland definitely plays into a lot of that mystique of the area. And as far as ramping up activity, it seems like some of the more interesting investigations I've been a part of, it was either storming in the middle of it or right after a storm, and we're getting all kinds of activity. So yeah, certainly.
So one of the chapters, speaking of weather, because I have to, one of the last chapter in my book, chapter 35, is weather and my tips to visit Ireland. So I share.
Wow.
Yeah, I share with people what it's like in the summertime and what it's like in the wintertime and the average temperatures in the fall and spring, so that you can be prepared should you decide to go to Ireland.
That is a wonderful idea, because a lot of people, I think that's one of the main concerns people have when they travel is they're going to an unfamiliar country, or even a part of our country, because it's so diverse here in the United States, and they don't know how to prepare. What am I going to dress for? Even when I do the Egypt tours from Cairo to Aswan, I mean it's 500 miles, so significantly warmer down south in Aswan than it is up north in Cairo. So yeah, you need to be prepared. So that's a wonderful idea there, Rob.
Thank you. I decided to do that. Plus, I have tips on city driving and renting a small car. And one other tip that I learned is when you're in Ireland, even though you have GPS on your phone, get a GPS unit, because your phone's GPS app will likely lose a signal at various times. But the GPS, the GPS unit will not.
Hey, Victoria.
Yes.
People are wondering what's the red light flashing behind you. It's like a laser pointer.
Cat disco.
Cat disco.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I thought I didn't know it was going to show up. I have lasers all over the house that go off at different times to keep.
As long as you didn't put a red light outside, Victoria, that's.
No, I have solar lights outside, but they only see a little bit.
For those of us who are old enough to know what that meant, it was
I studied history. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm only 27.
Never mind. I won't go there. That was think of think of the birdcage.
I know.
All right. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite places on earth. Is Tombstone.
Oh.
So much fun. Yeah, if you see flashing lights, they're not orbs. They're. I don't even know where he was under my foot a minute ago.
Stuff. So,
yeah, they go off all day, all night.
Another question here from Scarlett, and this is almost kind of like up my alley, but Rob, we'll let you take it since you are our guest this evening. What's the difference between ghosts and shadows?
Well, Mike, you have a number of different classifications for shadows. And I have only run into one type. Some of the other ones are pretty scary that were in your book, by the way. And I urge everybody to read Walk in the Shadows.
Thank you.
Yeah. A little plug there. So
Appreciate it.
yeah, so ghosts are earthbound, and in my experience, when they don't have enough energy, they can appear as a shadow or an outline. When they have more than enough energy, they will appear in full color.
Yeah. And Rob does have a nice section in A Walk in the Shadows where he talks about pet shadows, which is really fascinating.
Yeah, and my aunt, who appeared to me as a shadow figure, and I knew it was her. So
yeah. Yeah, and so right, exactly, just like you said, some of these human spirits don't have enough energy to manifest fully as what we would call a ghost, or that full apparition spirit form. But it really depends on the particular shadow, because they're not always human spirits. They can be a lot of different things, whether that's ETs or interdimensional beings, astral projections, a lot of different things beyond the scope of this conversation. But thank you for taking the question. There's a question from Alina, our chat moderator. She asks, is it easier for spirits to communicate through dreams?
Yeah, so spirits can communicate through dreams, and that's the easiest way that they can get a message to us. Ghosts, however, I've found, don't have that ability. Ghosts can influence our dreams because they're negative energy. So if there's a ghost in your house and you're dreaming, because they're near you, they can be near you, you will feel and absorb some of that negative energy from them, and that can make your dreams go in a bad way. So, but ghosts themselves, I've found, can't appear in your dreams. Only spirits who have crossed over.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that.
All about energy.
So what other little Easter eggs and nuggets do you have in this book? I love, just finding out that you have some stuff in there on weather and all these other little things, because those things are helpful.
Yeah. And I would also recommend not drinking coffee. I would drink tea. I'm a coffee drinker, but
really,
tea.
Why is that?
Because what they call American coffee to me is mud. But
yeah, the Americano. Yeah.
yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. Well, now in Egypt, we're going back to Egypt in a month. Their American coffee. Oh, they love their Nescafe. That's coffee to them, is Nescafe. It's like,
we don't make that here.
We don't even make that here anymore. No. It is different. Like the bacon there is not the bacon that we consider over here. It's like these large slabs of like ham. It's really different.
Almost Canadian bacon, maybe?
Yeah, it's almost like Canadian bacon. Yeah.
Okay.
But if you're in Ireland, wouldn't you just be going back and getting a pint? You wouldn't be having coffee or Nescafe or
you're going to get
whatever.
A pint at 9 a.m.? Jeez, Victoria.
Don't judge me.
Early.
I don't drink
somewhere.
Yeah, I don't drink, so I'm limited. But I will tell you that if you're a seafood eater, the Atlantic cod is tremendous. So one of the other things that, Mike, that people may appreciate in my book is that I really did an extensive dive into the history of places, so that if they want to learn about it, they will get a summarized version of history.
Cool.
So you'll know going in what you're going to see. One of the really cool places I went to was the Rock of Cashel. That was it's in the County Tipperary in Ireland, and it's been there for more than 1,700 years. And when I went there, I had no idea about the history of this place. It's like a fortress with a cathedral and ruins. So I was trying to figure out what in the world it was, when I was there. One of the really weird things was that, and by the way, Cashel, I found out, means fortress. and St. Patrick also was associated with the Rock of Cashel.
Right.
So because this is around St. Patrick's Day, I thought I'd throw that in there. But there was a really brutal guy that that lived there. He was an earl, and he massacred hundreds of people there. And I had no idea going in. But what I did feel was a lot of heavy residual energy. Most of the structure lay in ruins, so there was residual energy. But there were a couple of parts that were restored. And here's something interesting. Remember I talked about how ghosts will leave ruins and they'll go to a nearby structure that's still intact.
Right.
Well, that's exactly what happened here. I encountered ghosts here, and I wondered where they went. And they said they had gone to the Round Tower, and there is one standing round tower, part of the cathedral in ruins there, and that's where they went until the area where they died was rebuilt. So the Round Tower was built in the 12th century, and it stood there all this time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building. And after Vicky Breeze, Mike, how's your memory of Rock of Cashel? So so that entertaining story. We had the place that we stayed the night before. We were up extremely late. There had been some drinking involved, and this was at the hotel bar. And even last call. Okay, last call. It's supposed to shut down at 2. Last call is at 2. They were still serving us at 2. They just closed the blinds. They were serving us 3, 3:30, 4. It was like kept going and going. And getting up the next morning, we were supposed to get on the bus at 8:30. I woke up at 8:34, and Jennifer's knocking on the door, seeing if I'm still alive. I go rushing out with my stuff. I had left behind a bunch of shirts and everything in the little closet area, and apparently my toothbrush. Our bus driver Eddie, after he dropped us off at Rock of Cashel, Eddie was amazing. We absolutely loved him. He was so kind and generous. He took the bus back to the hotel, grabbed everything, and came to pick us up. So I was a little hungover.
Just don't go to sleep. Just stay up.
So they didn't say anything when you get to the Rock of Cashel wearing socks and underwear, and
right. It was the one place I got some. I've been showing some of the photos. I took photos. I totally forgot to take any videos, so I have all this great video footage of the entire tour except there.
Oh,
yeah. Well, there's Cody laughing at me.
I actually do have a couple
replaying Francis and Malike there at the hotel. It was Hayes Hotel.
Some sort of hooded figure that kind of hangs out up front. Maybe that's the dark energy you were talking about before, like a druid or something. Or did I read that somewhere?
So that was, I think that was actually I think a different place, because the ghosts that I sensed in here was all olfactory sense. So I started smelling smoke, and I didn't understand what was going on. I had a tightness in my throat, and then I felt like my lungs were filled with smoke, and I thought, what in the world is going on here? And there was, nobody was smoking. It was in this Vicor's Quarters, and my first thought was, this is probably where people went and smoked a pipe or a cigar or something else, but it turned out to be far more nefarious than that. The ghosts who inhabited this Vicar's room, the ones that had retreated to the Round Tower and came back when it was refurbished, apparently they were there when the Earl started his massacre. And the Earl had commanded his soldiers to put up peat moss or peat against the outsides of the wall and light it on fire. He was trying to smoke them out. and then killed them when they came out. But there were people that died within there, and they, when they died, they just lingered too long, and then they woke up and they woke up and they were still there, and they became earthbound as ghosts. But so I call that the Rock of Cashel's smoky ghosts.
Oh, interesting. So there are those smaller buildings right next, and I don't have my photos of those loaded up, but basically on the other side of this structure that we're seeing, there are those smaller buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So is that where the spirits are hanging out, those smaller buildings, because those are more restored than the main structure?
I think it was one of the buildings that is attached to the main structure. It's on the other side.
Okay.
It's called the Vicor's Quarters.
I don't know if I have a shot, because I really only have these two here. I got a whole bunch of stuff, but it's on my phone. Yeah. No.
Well, we'll just have to come over, Mike, and have you.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, you're up in Maine now, so yeah.
So does Tom,
these days.
Is your husband able to sense more of the ghosts and spirits now that, well, I don't want to say he's been hanging around. Now that y'all been married a really long time, is he able to pick up on them, or is he still?
No, after it's been 18 years. He now tries to ignore me as much as possible, so he's not paying attention to anything. No, he's got his own thing. So,
okay.
But what's interesting is that he is sensitive. So when we were there, he did sense things, not only at the Rock of Cashel, but other places too. And even like Blarney Castle and Blarney Castle and so forth. They have those murder holes where there are holes cut out over the doorways of the castle, and they would dump hot oil and all kinds of things on the people that were trying to come in. There was a lot of residual energy there, and it was quite unnerving, actually, about all the anxiety in there. So and so you can sense that.
Yeah, a lot of that. I don't know, archaic paint. I mean, some of the things. Yeah, could you imagine being under there and getting dumped down with hot tar? No. That's painful stuff. So
it was a pretty gruesome time.
Yeah, it really was. But the castles that are still left over, they're beautiful, and Ireland has so many of them. They just like dot the countryside. I remember the one person that we talked to over there said that Ireland has registered like some 30,000 castles. It's insane. Now some of these castles are, so far in ruins, they're like a couple of stones in a field somewhere, but still 30,000, that's a lot.
Yeah. Another one of them is Dromoland Castle. Have you heard of that?
I haven't been there, no.
So Dromoland Castle is now a bed and breakfast. Okay. It's now kind of a luxury bed and breakfast. We went through a travel agent across the pond vacations, and they put everything together for us because I didn't know anything about Ireland, neither did Tom. And this place is located in Newmarket-on-Fergus County. That's what County Clare, rather.
Okay.
In County Clare, and it's in southwestern Ireland, and it's an absolutely beautiful place. It has banquet halls, it has fine dining restaurants, cocktail bar, afternoon tea, whirlpool, steam room, golf course, horseback riding, all kinds of things for people. And it's just absolutely beautiful. And of course, I met a ghost there. It was a woman walking in the hallways, and I sketched her out, and that sketch is in the book as well. I call her the ghostess hostess because I didn't. But it was a really cool place, and the grounds are amazing. So if anybody's looking to stay at a place, I would say Dromoland Castle. Just if you're sensitive to ghosts, don't stay on the third floor.
Oh, okay. Fair warning.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to tell you. But I also remember, I'm being a big superhero fan. I remember a waiter that waited on us. He looked like Nightwing of DC Comics.
Ah, okay, cool.
He used to be Rob when he grew up, and I was like, wow, he looks exactly like Nightwing, and I thought that was pretty cool. And that's the comic side nerd of me.
There you go. So we're getting down to the end here, Rob, and we're going to ask you to hang on after we sign off of the show here. But you let everybody know where they can find you, find your book. Let me go ahead and pop this back up, and everybody have a link down to the book in the description below. So here it is again, Ghosts of Ireland on a Medium's Vacation by Rob Gutro.
Yeah, they can. Thank you, Mike. They can find all the books on Amazon.com. They're paperback, ebook, and now audiobook.
Too.
Yeah.
And you have your blog as well. Go ahead.
Yeah.
About your blog.
Yeah, I write a blog once a week. Do social media posts every single day. A lot of social media posts are from pet readings that I do that people give me the permission to share, the confirmations and so forth. So all social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn.
LinkedIn every day.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many things. It makes my head spin in my spare time. But thank you.
Keep up with.
It is. And Mike, I don't know how you do it.
Well, I always tell people, I kind of joke around, I don't sleep much, but I had to bring on a VA. She schedules all my stuff. Well, not all of it, but she schedules a lot for me now. So that's been really helpful the last a little over a year now. So.
Yeah, I could use that, but sadly, I can't unless they take payment in Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
There you go. That's the stuff there, Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
So, all right, everybody that's out there in YouTube land, we're going to be signing off, kicking over to our member-only after show. Those are listening to the podcast version of this later. Please join us every Wednesday night, 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time, connecteduniverseportal.com. All right, everybody, till next time, time really exists.